In this issue of ABC's Wide World of Flying, Captain Barry Schiff shows you how to cope with flight control failure, one of the most dreaded in-flight emergencies you can have. CFI Rod Machado teaches you techniques for improving your instrument scan and for detecting instrument failure. Bill Cox shows you what's been happening recently to the panel of his personal Mooney, an effective panel update for an older airplane. Our publisher, Phil Boyer, takes you with him to an intensive week of multi-engine training at Flight Safety International in Wichita, Kansas. From the AOPA Air Safety Foundation, Rod Machado shows you the techniques for identifying and troubleshooting in-flight electrical failures. And finally, Bill Cox gives you a checkout in the Citabria Decathlon series. Used airplanes with a lot of fun for the dollar. In our bonus buyer's guide at the end of this tape, the AOPA invites you to their upcoming annual convention in Orlando, Florida. And Pilot's Video Source shows you several more exciting new videotapes for aviation and history buffs. John and Martha King bring you their newest tips on flying technique. And you'll see a preview of one of the newest television commercials for general aviation. All this and more in this issue of ABC's Wide World of Flying.
Welcome to the start of our third year of ABC's Wide World of Flying, the quarterly video magazine of general aviation. As you can see, we've got a tape packed full of informative stories to help you enjoy the world of light plane flying to the fullest degree. Later in this tape, you'll follow along with me to experience simulator-based training at Flight Safety International's Cessna Learning Center in Wichita. I'd heard about flight safety from several friends who had not only gone there for initial training, but later signed up on annual contracts. Somehow I couldn't make the commitment to attend. My first excuse was time, since the initial course takes a whole week. Following a close second was money. To support the kind of instruction they give is expensive compared to other aviation courses that don't involve flying an actual airplane. But inwardly, my real concern was fear. Fear of not being up to the standards set by corporate and airline pilots who have trained for years at flight safety. Fear of being retested to fly a plane I felt real comfortable in piloting. And frankly, the fear of having to reprove all my skills once again. It was a production of the Wide World of Flying story that found me attending the flight safety course. Once there, I met many other owner pilots just like myself who felt the same anxiety. For all of us, the grueling week contained many lows and only a few highs. But while there, I learned the many advantages of simulator-based training. At the conclusion, we all agreed that regardless of our fear of retesting with instructors we didn't know, we were all better pilots because of the experience. Recurrent flight training can take many forms, with a well-conducted biannual flight review being the bare minimum. All of us should analyze many factors about our own flying, how much we fly, the weather we fly, the equipment we fly, and so forth, and then make a personal determination for what type of ongoing training is right for you. The one factor I've learned to dismiss when making this important decision is the fear of serious review by qualified professionals. Flying is too important to allow pride to enter a decision related to continued training. I encourage you to make sure you're on top of your proficiency through recurrent training. The full flight safety story later in this issue, but right now, Barry Schiff explains how to deal with an in-flight emergency you may have never trained for.
Some of every pilot's training is focused on dealing with emergencies. Oh, these include engine failure, electrical failure, and various instrument failures. But in this feature, I'd like to demonstrate the tactics required to deal with a failure that you might not have thought about before. Flight control failure. Now, it's not as unlikely as you might think. Every year, the National Transportation Safety Board reports a number of accidents due solely to the failure of a primary flight control. Now, here's an example of how it might happen. A pilot encounters heavy turbulence. He uses maximum control deflection to maintain aircraft attitude, but suddenly the yoke goes limp. An elevator control cable has snapped. The nose pitches over, and pulling back on the wheel does nothing, absolutely nothing. So now what do? The loss of elevator control is considered to be the worst type of flight control failure. But as you might suspect, it is possible to fly a light airplane with no elevator control whatsoever. You can do it by using a combination of elevator trim and power. But it's not particularly easy, especially during a real emergency. I'd like to demonstrate some of the problems involved.
All right, now we're going to make a takeoff without using the elevator. You'll notice my hand is going to be off the control. Now, normally you'd have no occasion to do this. Obviously, if you had a failed elevator, you wouldn't take off. But just to demonstrate that you can take off, we're going to do it. Full power, and I'll crank in some nose-up trim. The only problem is that many airplanes don't come off the ground unless you put in a lot of nose-up trim. Pilots get impatient. They keep adding trim and adding trim. Then the nose goes way up, and then you have to crank in a whole bunch of nose-down trim to get the nose down. And then more nose-up trim again to stabilize the climb. There we go, we're now on a stabilized climb. Never did use the elevator control. We're now stabilized in level flight, and I'd like to demonstrate the effect of power changes. First, we'll pull the power off and attempt to enter a normal glide. Again, I won't be using the elevator controls, I'll simply be using the trim. Power off. Notice the nose pitches down rather dramatically, and we have to counter that with a substantial amount of nose-up trim, not too much. And then we could use little bits of nose-up and nose-down trim to maintain the desired attitude, in this case, a normal glide. Now, once the aircraft is trimmed up for a normal glide, watch what happens when we add full power. The nose will rise rather dramatically, and it takes quite a bit of nose-down trim to prevent it from rising too much. And then we'll use little bits of nose-up and nose-down trim to maintain the desired climb attitude. I think the object of all of this is to point out that power changes in the traffic pattern should be held to a minimum, because gross power changes could result in unmanageable pitch changes. We're presently on final for runway 24. We're about to make a hands-off or a stick-free landing. That means we're going to assume that the elevator is inoperative. We're going to make a flaps-up landing, because if we attempt to land with the flaps down, we might risk landing nose wheel first, which of course is not too swift. We're controlling attitude with power right now. Adding power to make the nose go up, pulling power back to make the nose go down, and also using power we're able to stay right in the slot. But more or less we're gliding to touchdown. We're going to have to remember that when we get to within about 10 or 20 feet of the runway, ground effect is going to want to cause the nose to pitch over. It's going to take a small jab of power to prevent that from happening. There we go, a little bit of power, arrest the sink, there we go. It's not pretty, but it's safe and it gets you down when you have to. Preparing for this type of emergency is particularly difficult because the handling characteristics vary considerably between one airplane and another. But back in the hangar, I'll give you some general guidelines that apply to all airplanes.
When dealing with an elevator control failure, you need to understand the enormous influence that flaps have on pitch. Now, let's consider some fundamentals for a moment. Ordinarily, the center of gravity is located forward of the center of lift. Normally, the center of gravity produces a weight in this direction. The lift of the airplane acts in this direction. And you would think that with the weight acting this way and the lift acting this way, that the airplane would pitch nose down. And it would, were it not but for the fact that the tail produces its lift in a downward direction to create balance. Now let's see what happens when the flaps are extended, like so. Air from on top of the wing is deflected downward. We call this downwash. And as a result, more and more air strikes the top of the horizontal stabilizer, which creates additional downward force, which causes the nose to rise. This helps to explain, therefore, why extending the flaps causes the nose to rise in most airplanes. Some airplanes, however, behave just the opposite from what you'd expect, usually those with T-tails. Here, for example, you can see that the high T-tail is located up and away from the influence of any downwash created by extending the flaps. In aircraft such as this, the pitching moment, which usually or often is nose down, results from the center of lift, which ordinarily is here, moving aft when you extend the flaps. Now, if you had to make an emergency landing after experiencing an elevator control failure, my advice would be not to use any flaps at all, land with the flaps up, to avoid some of the rather large pitching moments created by extending the flaps. Another reason to land with the flaps retracted is that this makes it much easier to maintain a nose-high attitude, which improves your chances for a successful landing. Approaching the runway with the flaps extended usually results in a nose-down attitude, requires much larger pitch changes during the flare, and increases the likelihood of landing nose wheel first. Another factor that affects pitch during an elevator out emergency is power. The ability of the horizontal stabilizer to produce a downward aerodynamic force depends not only on wing downwash, but also on propeller slipstream, or prop wash. And perhaps we can illustrate that here. By adding power, we increase the amount of prop wash being developed by the propeller, quite obviously. More air, therefore, blows across the tail, and the tail, therefore, can do a better job, and the amount of downward lift produced by the tail increases. So the tail goes down, and the nose goes up. Happens every time we add power. Conversely, by reducing power, we reduce the amount of prop wash that reaches the horizontal stabilizer, and then it cannot do its job as effectively, and the amount of downward lift that it produces is reduced. As a result, the tail goes up and the nose goes down. So reducing power causes the tail to rise and the nose to drop. With practice, a proficient pilot should be able to counter the effects of flap extension or retraction by using power in such a way that attitude remains relatively constant. Now, this is an interesting exercise to practice at a safe altitude. Another factor affecting an elevator out emergency landing is ground effect. The downwash from the wing of either a high or a low wing aircraft produces a downward force on the horizontal stabilizer. You already know that. But when entering ground effect, the downwash of the wing is reduced somewhat because of the presence of the ground itself. So there's less downwash on the tail. There's less downward lift created by the tail. As a result, reducing the lift created by the tail forces the tail to rise somewhat, and the nose pitches down somewhat. So just as we're ready to land, the nose starts to drop. It's something you have to anticipate. You might recall that during our demonstration flight, I had trouble keeping the nose up just before touchdown. This was the result of entering ground effect. Immediately after takeoff, and as the aircraft begins to leave the influence of ground effect, downwash from the wing actually begins to increase, rather substantially. Now, this increases the downwash on the tail, and as a result, the tail produces a greater downward force. The nose tends to rise somewhat. Now, these pitch changes occur during every takeoff and landing, but we're rarely aware of them. Necessary corrections are minute. They're made subconsciously with subtle pressures on the control wheel. But during an elevator-out emergency landing, ground effect must be anticipated. It can be countered, but only with a perfectly timed application of nose-up trim or a jab of power. Another factor affecting an elevator-out emergency is center of gravity. You can simplify the emergency landing slightly by shifting some of the weight in the cabin aft. Now that may make some people unhappy, but it works. You will find it much easier to maintain a nose-high attitude during the approach. Okay, I've explained almost everything involved in pitch control during an elevator-out emergency. Flaps, power, ground effect, and center of gravity. That's enough hangar talk for now. Now there's one item left, the elevator trim tab itself. And there's little I can add to what you already know about a trim tab, except to mention that the effectiveness of a trim tab does vary considerably between one airplane and another.
Here's an interesting exercise that you can use to practice and learn more about the airplanes that you fly. We're now stabilized in a full power climb, which isn't very exciting in a 172. But look what happens. Look at the gross pitch change that occurs when we pull the power all the way off. Nose will go down quite a bit unless you apply quite a bit of nose-up trim to arrest the ensuing dive. And then smaller amounts of trim are applied, nose up and nose down, to establish and maintain the desired glide attitude. Now we'll add full power and attempt to arrest the strong nose-up pitching moment by applying nose-down trim, and then small amounts of nose-up and nose-down trim as necessary to establish and maintain the desired climb attitude. This is a good way to get some feel for what you might encounter if you had a total failure of the elevator control in flight. But what if only one elevator cable were to break? Well, you'd be in luck. An elevator failure usually doesn't result in complete loss of the elevator control. Usually, for example, you just lose the up cable or the down cable. For example, let's assume that the up elevator cable came loose or became broken. We would be unable to raise the nose by pulling back on the control wheel. Well, one thing we could do is to apply full nose-up trim, or a heck of a lot of nose-up trim, and then apply forward pressure to put the nose down, and we would then release some of that forward pressure to allow the nose to come up. So I can make the nose go up or down without pulling back on the control wheel. Similarly, if the down elevator cable failed, I could apply trim in the opposite direction, hold back pressure on the control wheel, and vary it to make the nose go up and down. A far more serious emergency is the jammed elevator. Now, although various combinations of power and flap extension offer limited pitch control, the prospects of a successful landing are very poor. Now, a common cause of control jamming is stuff like this E6B that gets loose in turbulence and winds up behind the panel or somewhere else where it doesn't belong. Now, there's a theory that using trim in reverse can be used to control pitch in the event of a jammed elevator. So let's give that a try. I'm holding this yoke solidly in place to simulate a jammed elevator. And as you can see, applying full nose-up trim has absolutely no effect on aircraft attitude. And also, applying full nose-down trim has no effect either. Now, this procedure might work in aircraft with larger tabs or adjustable horizontal stabilizers or the more rigid pushrod control systems, but it has absolutely no effect at all in the Cessna 172. Okay, so far we've discussed only elevator failures, because these are by far the most serious and difficult to cope with. If you lose aileron control, simply use your rudder to make shallow skidding turns. Just make sure the turns are shallow and gentle. Now, in an airplane like this 172, you have another really fascinating option. Just open both doors and let them float freely. Now, you can turn right or left just by pushing on the appropriate door. Of course, you should avoid crosswind landings when steering with the doors. Many of the emergencies that I hear about could be avoided with more careful pre-flight inspections, checking for correct and full control deflection before takeoff, and some timely maintenance. An in-flight control system failure is an emergency that can put you to the ultimate test. Fortunately, the odds are that it'll never happen to you, but if it does, we hope that the information presented here will contribute significantly to your successful resolution of the problem.
While descending toward an airport, a pilot experiences a rapidly decreasing tailwind. This type of wind shear will cause 1. The nose to drop, 2. Airspeed to decrease, 3. Sink rate to decrease. The answer is number 3. A decreasing tailwind has the same effect as an increasing headwind.
Constant airspeed climbs and descents, Joe. We're here at the Simulator and Instrument Training Center at Van Nuys Airport in Southern California to discuss a problem that has plagued IFR pilots since instrument flying began, and that is the instrument scan. IFR pilots know they're having trouble with their instrument scan when their ILSs look like sword fights, and the only way they can hold altitude is by continuously updating the altimeter setting, if you know what I mean. Perhaps nothing is as valuable as a quick, systematic IFR scan procedure for efficient management of an IFR flight for instrument pilots. I'd like to discuss with you an impressive 4-step scan procedure developed by airline pilot Ralph Butcher and described in his book, The Instrument Flying Manual and Simulator Training Guide. Let's take a walk to the classroom. These are the individual steps of the 4-step scan procedure, and they're used every time a major attitude change occurs in the aircraft. Step number 1, select attitude, power, and trim desired. Step number 2, music scan the inverted V instruments. Step number 3, music scan the primary instruments and offer the final trim. And step number 4, circular scan the big 6. Now you're probably wondering when you would use these 4 steps, how long does it take, and what exactly is the music scan and the circular scan that make up the 4-step procedure. Well, the first 3 steps take approximately 15 seconds. And the last step is accomplished when the airplane is established in the desired attitude and trimmed. Now, the music scan and the circular scan can best be described by the simulator. I've programmed this high-performance twin-engine simulator to be in level flight at 4,000 feet at 160 knots in the clean configuration. Now, what I'd like you to do is to enter a constant airspeed climb at 120 knots on a heading of 360 degrees. This, of course, requires a major attitude change. So let's give it a try. Go ahead, grab the controls and I'll talk you through it. And by the way, you're not going to be needing this, since this, of course, is a simulator. Okay, now for step number 1. Select the attitude, power, and trim conditions desired. Let's raise the nose of the airplane to an attitude that experience has shown will give us 120 knots. Do this by focusing all of your attention on the attitude indicator during the attitude change. Simultaneously, add climb power and reach over and give it a little nose-up trim. Let's freeze the simulator here for just a moment. Now, you've probably been told never to stare at any instrument, and that's good advice, except when it comes to the attitude indicator. You see, the attitude indicator is a complete instrument, and it gives both pitch and bank information. And as long as it's not reading inaccurately, then it's legitimate to stare at it for 5 to 7 seconds, as is required by step 1. Here are a few tips that the pros use that are basically one of 2 ways to determine whether the attitude indicator is providing you accurate information or not. In step 1, when the attitude is changed, make sure that the attitude indicator's airplane moves in the same direction as control application, and pay attention to a sluggish response suggesting a poorly spinning gyro, which should arouse suspicion. Now we're ready for step 2. let's music scan the inverted V instruments. The purpose of step 2 is to further confirm the accuracy of the attitude indicator and then to check the trend of the airplane. With the attitude indicator at the apex and the turn coordinator and the VSI at the endpoints, the instruments appear to make up what is an inverted V. Now, why are the inverted V instruments even important here? Well, all three instruments operate on separate and independent power systems. And this means that we can further then confirm the accuracy of the attitude indicator every time a major attitude change is made. When a straight climb is established in step 1, the attitude indicator's pitch accuracy is confirmed by referring to the vertical speed indicator. Here the VSI shows a climb deflection, thus confirming the attitude indicator's accuracy. The attitude indicator's bank accuracy is confirmed by referring to the turn coordinator. Here, the attitude indicator and the turn coordinator both show a wings level condition. The inverted V instruments are also called the trend instruments because they give quick and easily detected indication of airplane movement. Upon entering a climb, the VSI should indicate an upward deflection, and in straight flight, the turn coordinator should not be deflected, indicating that the heading selected is constant. Now, if the turn coordinator and the VSI don't show a deflection in the desired direction, then you should return to step 1 and start all over again with reestablishing the aircraft attitude, power, and trim. Now, some of you non-instrument rated pilots might be wondering what it means to music scan the inverted V instruments. Let me show you. We'll start at the attitude indicator and go to the VSI on the count of 1, then go back to the attitude indicator on the word and, then go to the turn coordinator on the count of 2, then return to the attitude indicator on the word and. The scan is done to a beat, like listening to music. Now that you understand it, give it a try. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Keep in mind that you can music scan any instrument or items. Just return to the attitude indicator on the word and check the aircraft's attitude. Now, let's see how step 2 can help identify an inverted V instrument failure. Using the inverted V instruments, I'd like you to identify which instrument has failed as we enter a left turn from 4,000 feet. Now, music scan the inverted V instruments and identify the problem. A discrepancy exists between the turn coordinator and the attitude indicator. The problem is either the turn coordinator or the attitude indicator is in error and another instrument is needed to break the tie between them. Which other instrument would you use to get an indication of bank or turning condition? Any recommendations? Can we use the DG to break the tie? No, because it operates on the same gyro system as the attitude indicator and could itself be inaccurate. The only other instrument independent of the attitude indicator and turn coordinator is the magnetic compass. Glancing at the magnetic compass, you can see it's indicating a turn, so you have to conclude that the turn coordinator has failed. We'll just cover it up with one of these little soap dish holders and fly partial panel. In this next scenario, you've just entered a climb. Music scan the inverted V instruments and identify the problem. A pitch discrepancy exists between the vertical speed indicator and the attitude indicator. A third pitch instrument or item is necessary to break the tie. Would you use the airspeed indicator or the altimeter? No, the airspeed indicator and the altimeter operate on the same static system as the VSI, and they both may be in error. The way to resolve the problem is to use the alternate static source. As the source is open, the VSI continues to read the same, indicating that the attitude indicator is probably in error. We'll just cover it up with one of these and operate partial panel, imagining the aircraft's attitude mentally. So far, I've shown you how to select the attitude, power, and trim conditions desired in step 1. And in step 2, how to music scan the inverted V instruments to check for accuracy and trend. Now, in step 3, we're going to music scan the primary instruments to permanently establish and trim the aircraft in its new attitude. Now, don't be confused. There are always 3 primary instruments, one for pitch, one for bank, and one for power. And the easiest way to identify a primary instrument is by identifying the instrument that gives you a numerical value for the pitch, bank, or power condition that you desire to fly. For instance, in straight level flight at 4,000 feet on a constant heading of 360 degrees at a manifold pressure of 25 inches, the only instrument that's capable of giving us a numerical value for altitude, or 4,000 feet, is the altimeter, so it's primary for pitch. The only instrument capable of giving us a numerical value for heading, or 360 degrees, is the directional gyro, so it's primary for bank. And the only instrument capable of giving us a numerical value for power is the manifold pressure gauge, so it's primary for power. In step 3, we're going to music scan the primary instruments for a straight climb. Now, what I'm not going to do is tap on the instruments with my pointer like I used to. I did that with my last student, and you can see what happened. He didn't like it. The airspeed indicator is going to be primary for pitch, and we'll climb at 120 knots. The directional gyro will be primary for bank, and we'll fly heading of 270 degrees. And the manifold pressure gauge will be primary for power, and we'll climb out at 25 inches. Keep in mind that it's usually only necessary to music scan the manifold pressure gauge once. Take a look at it on the panel. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. With the airplane established in the correct attitude, the final trim is now made in step 3. The first 3 steps of this instrument scan procedure have taken approximately 15 seconds, and they certainly have been very demanding of your time. The 4th step is to circular scan the 6-pack of instruments, and this scan is accomplished after the aircraft is established in its new attitude and trimmed. Give it a try. Simply scan in a circular manner while checking for small deviations. Now, what should I do if I want to look at something outside of these 6-panel instruments, like an approach plate, a radio, or a distraction of some sort? Glance at the attitude indicator before leaving the flight instruments, and note the attitude. Look at the item. In this case, it's the radios. Then glance back to the attitude indicator, and then return to the item, repeating this as often as is necessary. This sequence should look familiar to you. What's it called? That's right, it's the music scan. The real IFR pros will always music scan items outside the flight instruments. This is how they can control the aircraft and still deal with distractions. They simply scan back and forth from the distraction to the attitude indicator, and they can control the aircraft without having to look at other instruments. I've taken the left seat to share with you a few more ideas on instrument flying. Now that you understand the importance of the attitude indicator, you should avoid these common scan problems. Number 1, always watch the attitude indicator when major attitude changes are made. Number 2, always evaluate the attitude indicator's output when control application is made. Number 3, always music scan the attitude indicator during time-consuming tasks, such as tuning radios or reading charts. Number 4, give the attitude indicator your attention in turbulence or when making excessive control inputs. Number 5, carefully monitor the attitude indicator when you're experiencing vertigo. And number 6, evaluate the attitude indicator's output for accuracy. Now that you understand the 4-step procedure, I'd like to show you what it looks like from beginning to end. We're on a heading of 090 degrees, climbing at 120 knots. And air traffic control has just informed us that we have to turn left to a heading of 180 degrees. So for step number 1, we're going to select the attitude, power, and trim conditions desired. I'll be focusing on the attitude indicator as I enter this left-hand turn. I'll be turning to approximately 20 degrees of bank because I recall that should give me about a standard rate turn. Okay, I've neutralized the controls. I'm no longer focusing on the attitude indicator. And I've got the power desired, and I'm going to offer just a little bit of nose-up trim. Very good. Now I'm going to music scan the inverted V instruments to check for accuracy and trend. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and that looks about right. Accuracy is fine, and the aircraft has trended toward a left-hand turn and is in a left-hand turn. Now for step number 3, I'm going to music scan the primary instruments. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. And the aircraft is exactly where I want it, so no changes are made. I'll offer it a little bit of nose-up trim here. That looks good. And now I'm going to circular scan the big 6. And I'll be checking for small deviations. And when I'm within 10 degrees of my desired heading, 180 degrees, then I'll roll out, and that of course requires an entire new attitude change, and I'll recommence the 4-step scan procedure again. And that is exactly how it works. Remember, the professional pilots that do this for a living realize that an instrument pilot's job is not to perform, but actually to manage. I hope this IFR scan technique allows you to more efficiently manage the flight of your aircraft.
Last year, I bought this little Turbo Mooney in conjunction with my work here on ABC's Wide World of Flying. As you might imagine, we do quite a bit of traveling for the show, much of it in IFR conditions, and I needed a reliable airplane to get me to and from our locations. While my Mooney is a nice enough machine with reasonable speed and excellent efficiency, the panel looks like something out of a South American locomotive. Here's the before panel. A 20-year accumulation of radios and instruments with little rhyme nor reason. Perhaps surprisingly, everything works except the autopilot, but when we're finished, virtually everything on the panel will be updated to offer more utility and be more functional as well. Though we do have one excellent state-of-the-art NavCom and a late model Loran C, there's also the aforementioned antique autopilot of questionable parentage, a vintage tube-type NavCom, and an unusual switching panel. Well, it's been about 2 weeks since I left the airplane here in San Jose, and Jim Papani, manager of Advanced Aviation Services, says the installation is complete. He also says there were some problems with the job.
The problems we had with this airplane, like a lot of old airplanes, the wiring is very brittle and old, and you have to redo a lot of the existing wires. We also had a problem with panel space. The original old airplanes weren't designed for a lot of avionics like the new airplanes are, so we have a hard time cramming everything in that we needed to get in there. Mooney in particular are very short in depth as far as their panel space, and avionics, quite a few of them are quite long, and we had a problem getting everything in, so we had to put the real short radios on top and go down as the length got longer. Also, we had a problem with the plastic false panel that goes over the instruments. It was brittle, it was cracking, and we had to be very careful with it. And other than that, everything went pretty normal.
Well, if looks count for anything, this has got to be a winner. From a navigation and communication point of view, I can almost believe I'm sitting in a different airplane. Let's fire up and we'll show you how all the goodies work in flight. Let's take a look at the individual upgrades and examine how they help improve the total package for IFR use. First, you can see we've done away with that Mickey Mouse home-built switching panel in favor of a more functional push-button Narco CP136M with a built-in 3-light marker beacon, all mounted on the center stack. Up where the old switching panel used to be, Advanced Aviation has installed a Davtron 903 digital VOR indicator with a signal decoder that translates the Morse code identifier and displays it sequentially right on the instrument, minimizing the need to orally identify the station. As primary VHF NavCom boxes, we've added dual Narco Mark 12D NavComs with flip-flop frequencies in place of the older radios, especially the backwards tuning King KX160. A good radio, but long since outdated. For distance info, we have a simple Narco 891 DME built into the #1 glide slope CDI with distance to station as primary and ground speed available by pressing the course knob. There's also a clever 841 ADF that incorporates dual frequency storage, plus a pair of count-up timers to help you through approaches. The elapsed timer can be reset to allow you to time approaches or legs. My transponder is a fairly conventional AT150 with a blind encoder, but I left the old square UDI-4 transponder installed. It's certainly an antique, but it works okay and will function just fine as a backup. Plus, I'll have one of the few Moonies with dual transponders. My new RNAV R50 Loran C rounds out nav capability. It can't talk, but it can do nearly everything else the other radios can, and all in only one box. When the R50 Loran is coupled to RNAV's FC10 fuel computer, it can provide accurate absolute range readouts, assuming current consumption remains constant, and act as a repeater of fuel flow information. Finally, we've updated the instruments with a Hamilton HI-350 remote vertical card compass system, a considerably more accurate and reliable heading indicator than the standard whiskey compass. The HI-350 has very little lead, lag, and dip error during maneuvers, and is less susceptible to onboard magnetic interference because the sensor is mounted back in the tail. There's a more accurate 2,000 foot per minute VSI in place of the dumb 6,000 foot per minute instrument we had before, a new turn coordinator to drive the Mooney's simple wing leveler PC autopilot, and last and most definitely least, at least in terms of price, a Sigtronics intercom system velcroed to the floor panel.
Panel upgrades definitely aren't for everyone. They can be costly, but expense is always relative. A panel upgrade can dramatically improve the utility of any aircraft at a fraction of the cost of replacing the aircraft itself. Counting trade-ins, the items I've added come to a total of about $12,000 on this little Mooney. Throw in $3,000 for installation and your total expense is about $15,000. That's certainly not an insignificant amount of money, but it does add a tremendous amount of IFR reliability to an already nice airframe. With the new panel installed in November 9165 Victor, my little Mooney is now ready to take on any reasonable IFR situation.
As many of you regular viewers know, last August I traded in my trusty 6-year-old Beech Baron for a Cessna 340A. No newcomer to private flying, I've logged almost 2,300 hours in 20 years, 1,400 of those in multi-engine airplanes. My purpose in coming here to Wichita's Mid-Continent Airport is to attend Flight Safety International's one-week initial course on the Cessna 300-400 series aircraft. Flight Safety's Cessna Learning Center, which will be my home for the next week, is conveniently located right on the airport.
Flight safety's come a long way since our beginning in 1951, training corporate pilots for Texaco using the old blue box link trainer. That has evolved into our operation where we have moved into training the scheduled airlines. Many of the major carriers train with flight safety simulators. We've made a very heavy commitment in corporate and regional airline training, over $100 million in new regional airline simulators. We operate more than 30 centers worldwide, United States, Canada, Europe, training all types of pilots. As a matter of fact, we even manufacture our own simulators down in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
It's almost a campus-like setting at Mid-Continent Airport, with a dormitory being the Hilton Hotel, just a short 5-minute walk away from flight safety. In the lobby is a special aviator's desk just for airline and flight safety guests to help with special arrangements. My first day, it was up bright and early to arrive at the Learning Center around 7:30 a.m. When you're not in session, the Pilot's Lounge is the central place to hang out and get acquainted. Each of the 5 weekdays started at 8 in the morning with a 3-hour classroom session. There were only 3 other students in the class. Within a short time, you build a camaraderie with your classmates. Paul, from near Flint, Michigan, was a brand new multi-rated pilot but had previously owned a P-210. John, from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, had twin time in a 310 and was about to purchase a 340. Luis had 600 hours in a 340 and over 3,600 hours total time. His occupation was flying for a Mexican university. Luis needed a translator for the entire week and used the special soundproof booth in the classroom just for this purpose.
He'd like to know when the alternator fail light comes on, does that necessarily mean the alternator has failed?
Okay, no, it doesn't.
No.
This sensor does tell you...
The classrooms are equipped with all the latest audiovisual teaching aids, and the instructor uses these throughout each lesson.
And that would falsely turn the light on. Any other questions? If not, I have a couple questions of my own for you. And our first question is, the battery power is provided by what?
We used a push button at our desks for the answer, which the instructor instantly saw on his console.
All right. Battery is one lead-acid battery, isn't it? Answer number B. Here's your test and your answer C.
There are homework assignments, so it is necessary to devote about an hour each evening. And on the final hour of the Friday morning, there is an exam covering the entire ground school course. Following the classroom session each day was a 90-minute session in the cockpit procedures trainer with my simulator instructor, Jeff Terrell.
Go ahead and have a seat. This is the seat for pilot in command of the training of our 340 series aircraft. Okay, now one thing that's really, I think you'll find very beneficial about this part of the course is the fact that this is a chance for a one-on-one question and answer. So if any time during ground school you have some problems or night study, some of your homework, feel free. When you come in here, we'll spend 15, 20 minutes, whatever it takes, just talking over those questions that you may have.
We covered the 340 checklist from the pre-start procedures forward. Will the covers close if the switch is on?
Yes, they will. However, as soon as you close the cover, the switch will also be turned off. Okay? So if you ever utilize the system, be sure you leave the cover open, or else you're going to just deactivate it one more time by closing it. Okay?
Next, it was on to what was to be my airplane for the next 5 days. For 90 minutes a day, I was scheduled to fly with Jeff in a machine you learn to hate. The full-motion simulator was controlled from a computerized panel behind the pilot's seat.
Hey, Phil, what's the call sign of your aircraft?
November 24 Charlie Pop.
Okay. All right, you have your ATIS, you have your departure clearance. All you need to do is contact the tower 118.2 for takeoff instructions.
Mid-Continent Tower, Twin Cessna 24 Charlie Pop, ready to go on one right.
Roger, Twin Cessna 24 Charlie Papa. You're cleared for takeoff, runway at one right.
Day one was fairly normal flying with few surprises. Jeff's main purpose was to familiarize me with the simulator, which was a little more sensitive than the actual airplane, particularly on or near the ground.
Okay, brake release as you come in the rest of your power. Now you'll find it quite sensitive on the steering for takeoff. There's very little rudder pressure. Looks good. What speed are we going to rotate at?
91.
Okay, 91 knots. Okay, rotate.
Positive rate, gear up.
Okay, now Phil, we've set up for now our cruise power. We've done our cruise check. Now we're just going to do some simple VFR maneuvering. So I'd like you to give me a 30-degree right turn.
I'm sure Jeff was looking at my basic instrument skills and evaluating my communications work. Even though he used my own plane number all through this first sim session, he kept changing it slightly to try to trick me into responding to his ATC instructions.
Still just a little tight on your turn. There you go. All right, we're in the approach to landing stall.
About halfway through our workout, Jeff found the first place where I could use some instruction on the technique of recovering from an approach to landing stall.
Get the stall buffet, and then I'd like you to recover. All right, go ahead and power on back to about 20 inches and maintain 90 knots. Okay, how much altitude did we lose on that?
Quite a bit.
Yeah. This time, when you come with power, bring your power up to just where that takeoff mark is on your power, on your trim console for your pitch trim. Just bring the throttle levers up to that. And then, while the power is coming up, bring the flaps to 15, mixtures full forward, props full forward, and then come in with the rest of your power. Okay? All right, recover. Full power, positive rate, put your nose up to that attitude, right on up, right on up. There you go, now gear up. And as soon as your gear and transit lights out, flaps up. Hands on the throttles. Now you see we only lost 350 feet that time, and that's with basically no practice. If you practice that, you'd probably only get maybe 100-foot loss of altitude.
Okay.
Nice job. We'll work on that some more in the next lessons.
While 90 minutes sounds like a short time, it couldn't have been any longer as far as I was concerned. Following a sim session, Jeff met me in a private briefing room to review the day's lessons and answer any questions. Each day we repeated the same schedule: classroom, cockpit procedures trainer, and simulator. The lessons became more complex and the simulator work more intensive.
Roger, Twin Cessna 24 Charlie Pop, cleared for takeoff, runway 1 right.
By the third day in the simulator, the session stressed emergency procedures. Jeff recreated all kinds of failures that you'd never want to do in the actual airplane. First were problems occurring during the takeoff roll, like a door warning light coming on just at rotation speed. Door warning light and aborted takeoff.
Okay, what was the problem?
Door warning light on the annunciator.
Okay, very good.
Next, it was unequal power right before liftoff. Looks like I've lost the turbocharger on the left engine.
Okay, very good. We had a wastegate that failed on you.
Okay. Throughout the early sessions, I had been unaware that Jeff had been looking for bad flying habits that I brought with me to flight safety. In my airplane-based training, no instructor had ever failed an engine after liftoff, still real close to the ground. It took my first simulator crash to demonstrate something that could have happened in the real airplane with passengers. Rotate. Positive rate of climb. Gear up.
Hold your heading. Hold your heading. Hold your heading. All right, we lost it. Okay, now, Phil, I've noticed every takeoff we've done today, you've brought that gear up way too soon. Remember, what we talked about in the CPT is that when you have enough runway to land on, you keep the gear down until you do not have enough runway to land on. That's when you retract the gear. Okay?
Okay. Putting everything together that I had learned the hard way, Jeff now had me prepared to handle the engine loss correctly.
Nice technique. Very good. Keeping those throttles up, hands on them. That's good.
Okay, I must be out of runway now. Just as I retracted the gear, Jeff pulled an engine. Engine out. It's the left.
Okay, well, watch our heading and attitude. Airspeed looks good.
I had progressed to handling one of the toughest tasks in flying a light twin. Okay, bank into the right engine just slightly. By the last day, flying on one engine was the norm, but handling electrical, pressurization problems, icing, and the like required I call on every bit of knowledge gained in the classroom, CPT, and sim. 2-4 Charlie Pop, okay? And you understand we want the emergency equipment standing by. We've got a right engine out, and we're in icing conditions. In these scenes, I'm flying an instrument approach without an approach plate to a military field I've picked for an emergency landing. I'm in heavy turbulence, heavy icing, with pressurization failed and electrical problems.
Visibility 2.5 miles. Altimeter is 29er5.
And I've lost the alternator completely. That means I've got to reset the alternator field. What's your heading? So I'm going to turn off the battery and the affected alternator. Turn on the emergency alternator field switch. And bring the alternator back online. There we go. As usual, I'm in here like this after a simulator ride.
Well, you did a fine job today.
Thank you.
You really did. The only comment that I can really make that I've observed was the electrical problem where you're just a little bit slow downloading the system. We've got to get rid of the anti-ice and de-ice systems as quickly as possible so we can save our electrical
That
energy.
windshield takes a lot of electricity.
It sure saps it up, doesn't it?
Right.
It really does. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead then and recommend you for completion of your flight training that you'll...
Successfully passing Flight Safety's simulator-based training gets you a 6-month instrument competency check and a biannual flight review for your logbook.
Oh, great. Okay. It looks like as far as the ground school, the CPT, and the simulator, flying colors. So
Thanks a lot,
enjoyed
Jeff.
working with you, Phil.
Okay.
Take good care.
Flight Safety's Self-Learning Center offers a wide choice of videotapes, computer quizzes, and even interactive laser discs to watch in your spare time. The aviator's desk back at the Hilton Hotel can feed any of these titles to your room. So if you can't sleep, just phone the desk and within minutes you can be learning about the proper use of radar or whatever. Saturday morning is an optional day at Flight Safety that owners can use to train in their actual airplane. Instructor Weldon Burnett explained what was in store.
340 type training. As we're doing our flight training today, I want to make sure you understand the difference between this and the simulator training. Lots of differences.
I hope so.
Okay.
He went on to review all the maneuvers we'd be doing in actual flight because all the flight students have just spent a full week in the simulator. He made sure that I understood one important point.
Jeff Terrell's kind of rough on you this week doing all sorts of malfunctions in the sim. No malfunctions today, okay?
I don't know whether to believe you guys.
Well, hopefully by a couple hours from now you'll believe me. But the point I'm getting at, if there are any malfunctions, I am surprised.
And they are real.
You bet. I'm not, I swear.
Yes, sir.
For the first time in almost a week, here I was at my actual airplane. When Weldon said we'd do a thorough pre-flight using the checklist, that's exactly what we did. The exterior walk-around took almost 90 minutes, but I picked up quite a few good pointers on the airplane that I thought I already knew.
Phil, the pre-flight looked great. We're going to go now. I'll get in first, you follow me, and you prove the door was shut.
Okay. It was with a little apprehension that I approached flying my airplane once again, having spent the last week in the simulator. I was glad I had an instructor along for this transition back to reality.
Selectors, verify on the mains. On the mains.
It was as routine as Weldon had said back in the briefing room. Unlike the sim, there were no surprises. We breezed through the before takeoff checklist.
Flaps in the up for takeoff indicating up. Fuel flows are in the wide arc. I want you to leave the gear down as long as we've got something left to land on.
For the first time in several days, I experienced a daylight takeoff without any engine failures or equipment malfunctions. But boy, was I ready.
Bill, I'd like you to make a standard...
The initial air work consisted of some 30 and 45-degree bank turns, with the emphasis on holding altitude and rolling out on the correct heading. After that, we did some stall sequences, and then a very interesting exercise that you should do in whatever plane you fly.
20 inches, 2450.
Weldon had me experiment to find out just the right power and prop settings to hold 120 knots in approach configuration, flaps 15 degrees and gear down for my airplane. Then he had me find the settings for this same configuration in an approach descent, 500 to 600 feet per minute. The object is to firmly establish these numbers for your particular plane so you're not jockeying with the controls during an instrument approach.
Now let's say that on this heading of 030, we are on a localizer and the needle is centered. Now missed approach is...
At altitude, Weldon had me practice missed approach procedures for the airplane. The goal in this case was to never go below the altitude he set as the missed approach point. In this case, 4,000 feet.
VFR altitude. Turn right heading 300.
Oh, sorry, Phil, we don't see the airport missed approach. Once we've established a positive rate, retract the gear. Fly the airplane.
Shutting down an engine during flight training is not a regular part of the curriculum, but it can be included at the owner's request. Slowly and deliberately, we went through the procedure for securing an engine in cruise flight.
Okay, we will feather. All right. Advance the power on the left when as necessary. I'm going to bring you up to the top of the green arc. And we're still above VYSE.
Our air work continued with an ILS approach and a non-precision approach with a tight circle-to-land situation, using landmarks instead of mountains.
You may go on down to that little farm that has the grain elevator on it, but not past.
I was glad I spent the extra day flying my airplane, and I'd recommend this extra time to anyone taking the flight safety course.
Training, I think, is one of the areas that has been sort of overlooked by the owner pilot. When you look at our interest in the business, we're always interested in the aircraft itself, the hardware. We annual the aircraft. We need to be annualing the pilot as well. Look at the 100-hour inspections that we give it when we fly for hire. We replace time-limited parts. The pilot is the only critical component that we routinely run to failure.
Those of you who fly Barons and Bonanzas will find this site familiar. Similar courses to my 340 training are offered for both these Beechcraft light planes. In addition, they've just installed a 210 simulator in Wichita.
Baron 41, Quebec, contact tower now, 118.2, good day.
One of the excuses we frequently get for pilots not training is, I fly all the time. I feel comfortable in my airplane. I'm proficient. Well, so do the professional pilots, the airlines, the military, and the corporate jet operators. The reason they come back for training is they don't get to practice on a regular basis all of the emergency procedures and some of the things that we never get to see because our airplanes are so reliable.
In spite of all the punishment I'd subjected myself to during the week, I couldn't pass up an opportunity to fly the newest addition to FSI's cockpits, Sim 57. It's a Phase 2 6-axis simulator for the Citation 3. The control console is totally computerized, and I asked my instructor Bert to position me for my home airport, Teterboro, New Jersey. The cockpit is equipped with a 5-tube EFIS system and a wide-angle view visual display. This means even when you look out those big Citation side windows, you see a ground simulation. Familiar landmarks were visible like Giant Stadium, the radio towers, and even the headlights of cars running along the highway near the airport. This was the closest I'll ever get to flying an airplane this sophisticated, but I sure felt very comfortable with Bert's expert guidance. It's possible to be type-rated in a Citation 3 without ever flying the actual airplane.
Pull the airplane right up into that triangle there a little bit. There you go, right up there. Okay, fly that right down. Don't cheat on us. Looking good. Airspeed's perfect. Just hold what you have here. Okay, very good. Just slowly bring the power back and nose up just a little bit. Hold what you have right here. It's going to be a beautiful landing. Okay, now reach forward, get the speed brakes. Speed brakes and a thrust reversers. Okay, very good. Good job. You see, you already keep...
Sunday morning arrived and the weather was perfect. Almost too good since I wanted to use my newfound instrument skills. There was a distinct sense of pride and accomplishment as I taxied out for the flight back to New York. I felt more comfortable than before, knowing that I had experienced many emergencies that would never have been possible to simulate in the actual plane. In cruise flight, I reflected back on the week and how I could explain it to my wife, family, and pilot friends. In the end, it was clear that the flight safety experience is a very individual one. When you fly as an owner pilot, you are the only crew member. When you seek the flight safety type of training, you're doing it for yourself and for those you carry with you as passengers. Of prime importance is the personal growth and accomplishment in being a well-trained pilot in command.
Which of the following is not specifically marked on the face of an airspeed indicator? 1. Maneuvering speed. 2. Flaps up stall speed. 3. Flaps down stall speed. The correct answer is number 1, maneuvering speed, which in many airplanes varies with gross weight.
Electrical system malfunctions normally fall into one of two categories, either an insufficient rate of charge or an excessive rate of charge. Now, it's possible that the very first sign of an electrical system failure will be difficulty in being heard by ATC or in hearing ATC. Weakening signals or complete failure of pulse equipment such as transponder, DME, or radar, as well as wandering VOR needles and intermittent off flags, may be other impending signs of an electrical system failure. If you suspect an electrical system failure and the ammeter and low voltage light confirms it, then immediately minimize the electrical draw by turning off all unnecessary electrical equipment and make only essential communications, because radio transmissions will use a great deal of electrical power. Electrical system failure resulting from excessive charging by the alternator can easily fry the aircraft battery and damage electrical equipment. Normally, most aircraft have an overvoltage sensor that will deactivate the alternator if voltage exceeds a critical level. If the overvoltage sensor malfunctions, as is indicated by an excessive rate of charge shown on the ammeter, then the alternator circuit breaker should be pulled and the alternator should be turned off by using the split portion of the master switch. This isolates the alternator and leaves battery power available for equipment use. Also, keep in mind that if the overvoltage sensor were to shut down the alternator, or if the alternator output is low, a discharge rate will be shown on the ammeter along with the illumination of a low voltage warning light. This may be what is known as a nuisance trip out, and an attempt should be made to reactivate the alternator system by turning off the avionics power switch, making sure the alternator circuit breaker is in, and turning both sides of the master switch off, then on again. This resets the alternator field circuit breaker, and if the problem no longer exists, the normal charging should resume and the low voltage light should go out. These procedures are only for one particular type of electrical system and may not fit the airplane you fly, so read your pilot's operating handbook carefully. And also, consider this, that problems with a failing electrical system can normally be detected early by including the ammeter and the low voltage light in your instrument scan.
Fun flying isn't what it used to be, but then times have changed. These days it's becoming more and more difficult for a man to go up and fly just for the fun of it, what with ARSAs and TCAs and encoders to contend with. For those who do appreciate fun flying, the trio of colorful tail draggers behind me have become the standards by which other airplanes are measured. They're all sport machines designed more for what a man can do with them rather than where he can go or how fast he can get there. Today we're here at Screaming Eagle Aviation in Santa Paula, California to have some fun with these pure fun airplanes. We're going to explore the aerobatic envelope in all three models, give you an idea of the similarities and differences between the airplanes, and examine the market for used Citabrias and Decathlons. Bottom of the line is the basic 7ECA Citabria, better known simply as the 115. It's powered by a 235 cubic inch Lycoming engine rated for 115 horsepower and 2,000 hours between overhauls. This makes it one of the most durable engines in the industry. The wing is a conventional high-lift airfoil, 33.5 feet in span, with a flat bottom surface and a curved top surface. We'll talk more about airfoils later when we examine the Decathlon. Like all the high-wing Blancas, the Champ is wood and fabric with a tube steel fuselage, generally regarded as more flexible and durable choices for aerobatics than aluminum. On the Champ, struts connect the wing to the bottom fuselage, and there's a small steerable tailwheel for directional control on the ground. Certainly one of the acknowledged experts on the subject of high-wing Blancas is Doug Dullenkopf of Screaming Eagle. Doug has been selling sport planes for about 16 years now, and he knows the Citabria Decathlon line better than his German Shepherd. Doug, first perhaps you could help us decode the alphabet soup of models that Blanca uses, the 7ECA, the 7GCBC, and the 8KCAB. What do they all mean?
The different model designations of the Citabrias and Decathlons are pretty much arbitrary. There are 4 models Citabrias, starting off with the 7ECA, which is 115 horsepower. Then we have the 7GCAA, which is 150 horsepower. Then we have the 7GCBC, it's 150 horsepower with flaps. That's the only Citabria with wing flaps. Then we have the 7KCAB, It's 150 horsepower with the inverted fuel and oil systems. Then the decathlon line, there's 3 models. The 150 horsepower with a fixed pitch propeller, the 150 horsepower decathlon with a constant speed, and of course our super decathlon, the 180 horsepower with a constant speed prop. And all the decathlons have the symmetrical airfoil.
How much will a pilot have to spend for a nice bottom-of-the-model line 7 ECA such as this one?
7 ECA Citabria will run between $12,000 and $18,000. A late model one like we have here, a 1980 model, will run in the mid-20s if it's always been hangared and well maintained.
It's tough to put a price on how much fun a Citabria can be. With 115 horsepower out front, the little champ doesn't exactly scamper down the runway, but it's eager to fly, lifting off in about 500 horizontal feet. Climb at sea level is 500 to 700 feet per minute, though you may have a tough time verifying that on most champs, since there's usually no VSI installed. Or much of anything else for that matter. Needle ball and airspeed are all these airplanes require for acros, so that's generally all they've got. Realistic cruise at 5,500 feet is a little over 100 knots on about 6 gallons an hour, in case anyone cares. If you did choose to fly the littlest Citabria on a cross-country trip, though, you might be hard-pressed to avoid getting upside down every once in a while. After all, aerobatics are what the Citabria is all about. The name is an illiterate copywriter's reverse spelling of the word aerobatic. The Belanca Model 7 ECA loves to roll as long as you remember to keep the speed up and the G-load positive so you don't lose the engine passing through inverted. With so little power and a carburetor rather than fuel injection out front, inertia has to help you through most maneuvers. But that doesn't diminish the fun, though it does limit the type of maneuvers you can do. A loop, for instance, demands a minimum 140 miles per hour on the airspeed, since power won't help you get over the top. If you fly a true loop rather than an L, you'll probably lose power temporarily in the inverted position. With so much wing and so little airplane under it, the Champ's stall speed is a low 45 knots, making it a near stall machine around the patch. You can routinely use 55 knots in the pattern and stop in well under 1,000 feet of runway.
The Citabria 7 KCAB features the 150 horsepower Lycoming engine with the inverted fuel and oil systems. Also features a fixed pitch propeller. Of the 8,200 Citabrias built, the 7 KCAB was probably the most popular. A nice clean Citabria, 150 horsepower, let's say a 7 GCA, the basic of the 150 horsepower airplanes, carbureted, flat bottom wing, no flaps, could bring $15,000. And a nice 7 KCAB, which features the inverted fuel and oil system, a late model one could bring as much as $25,000.
More power makes all the difference in vertical maneuvers, starting with climb. A 150 Citabria does an easy 1,000 feet per minute pointed uphill, and extra power also makes it more capable at aerobatics, if not cruise. Adding 35 more horsepower only bumps cruise up about 3 knots, but vertical penetration improves dramatically, and fuel injection gives the airplane some new talents as well. Notice the negative angle of attack, though, in the inverted attitude. A Citabria can't really do much in the way of outside maneuvers because the wing isn't very efficient when it's upside down. It doesn't develop much lift and requires a very high negative pitch angle simply to keep the airplane flying. Naturally, the 150 Citabria's extra power lets it do everything the 115 Champ can do, only better.
The Super Decathlon, as the name implies, is designed for more serious aerobatic competitors. The Super Decathlon features the 180 horsepower Lycoming engine with an inverted fuel and oil systems, in addition to a constant speed Hartzell propeller. The limit load factors on the airplane are +6, -5 Gs. The aerobatic capability on this particular airplane is excellent for vertical penetration.
The Super Decathlon symmetrical wing provides improved inverted handling And the aileron shovels give aerodynamic assistance in lightening control forces during roll. Note that as the ailerons move down, the shovels deflect up and vice versa. Most super decathlons are lightly equipped and typically without IFR instrumentation compared to normal category aircraft. This one does have a transponder at top right panel for operating in and around the Los Angeles TCA. Mixture, primer, prop control, throttle, and alternate air are all grouped on the left panel and sidewall, and all electrical switches and CBs are mounted above the pilot's left shoulder.
Okay, all the necessary latches are latched and the traffic is good. And Decathlon 5501 Charlie is departing 22 at Santa Paula.
Santa Paula.
The Super Decathlon is the undisputed top of Malanka's high wing line for climb and cruise performance as well as aerobatics. With still more power than the Centabria and slicker aerodynamics, the Super can climb at 1,200 to 1,300 feet per minute and cover ground at an easy 120 to 125 knots. That makes it an excellent cross-country airplane as well as an aerobatic ace.
The Super Decathlon really shines when it's time to cut loose with some acro. It's a very forgiving airplane, whether you're right side up or upside down. In fact, pilots have won the sportsman class in aerobatic competitions with Super Decathlons. Garden variety aileron rolls are simple, requiring minimal pitch up. Snaps are fun too. Entered at 85 knots, a Super Decathlon makes a full rotation in about 3 seconds. Four points take advantage of the Super's good roll rate. Finally, slow rolls, a traditionally tough maneuver demonstrated here with minimum practice, aren't all that challenging. Point the nose straight up, and the 180 horsepower Lycoming engine allows you to fly maneuvers that certainly would be more difficult in a 115 or 150 Centabria. Here's a plain and simple hammerhead turn out of a vertical climb. Here's what a hammerhead looked like to me. Note the horizon splitting the cowling more or less perpendicular as we arc back down through. An Immelman is a combination of two aerobatic maneuvers, a half loop followed by a half roll. As we hit the inverted position here, you'll see the aircraft roll back to straight and level flight. Because the Decathlon is certified for aerobatics, it's also capable of vertical banks.
The point is that the Super Decathlon is a truly friendly machine that always encourages you to try again. I'm no aerobatic hot dog, and yet this airplane makes me feel totally comfortable in the aerobatic mode. Whether you're a competition pilot or just a weekend acro flyer, the Super truly is a good trainer for pilots who want more performance, or just a fun machine for the aviator who'd like to see the world from a different perspective, such as this one.
Common to all models is the inspection of the landing gear U-bolts. A Malanka service letter covers the inspection and torque values
for all the airplanes. The problem with the U-bolts is they crack and eventually fail at the radius. Another problem is the wing rib nails. The ribs are attached to the wing spars with a small brass nail. In time, the combination of the spars drying out and the aerobatics make nails work their way out. If this condition isn't checked, damage to the spars could occur. Because of the aerobatic requirement, the constant speed prop on the decathlon has to be inspected every 500 hours or 5 years, whichever occurs first to comply with AD 771206. Also, the crankshaft must be magnafluxed every 100 hours of operation until it's replaced with a new solid crankshaft because of AD 841305. Citabrias and decathlons aren't for everyone. As dedicated fun airplanes, they're not particularly fast, won't carry much, and suffer from short range. They're airplanes dedicated to the premise that there is a market for fun machines, irrespective of their utility value or corporate transport capabilities. It's true the Citabrias and decathlons we've flown today are out of production now, but they've held their value surprisingly well, better even than some Beechcrafts. It's also true that Tiny Pitts Aircraft of Afton, Wyoming, a company that produces pure aerobatic hot rods, has been in continuous production for over 20 years, while corporate giants such as Piper, Cessna, Beech, Mooney, Gulfstream, and Rockwell haven't been so fortunate. There may be a message there somewhere.
There you have it, our first video edition of Year 3 for ABC's Wide World of Flying. You know, our success is made possible in no small part by your continued support. If this tape had a renewal notice attached to the packing box, please take the time to fill it out now. Or phone our new 24-hour toll-free number to ensure uninterrupted service. Now, you'll definitely want to be among the first to receive our next videotape when Barry Schiff takes you into a full EFIS glass cockpit to demonstrate the remarkable capabilities of these state-of-the-art avionics. And Bill Cox visits Wichita, the home of Beechcraft, to fly the all-time single-engine classic, the Beech Bonanza. Plus, much, much more. Now, stay with us for the bonus buyer's guide, which previews the AOPA 50th anniversary convention to be held at Orlando, Florida in October. And informative flying tips from John and Martha King. Until next quarter, safe flying.
Pilot's Video Source presents another collectible gift pack. Produced during the early war years by legendary screen director Frank Capra, this Academy Award-winning documentary series was shown to every soldier sent overseas. Now the full, complete versions of all 7 motion pictures are on these 6 video cassettes. Prelude to War, The Nazis Strike, Divide and Conquer, The Battle of Britain, The Battle of Russia, The Battle of China, War Comes to America. All 6 tapes are mastered from the original film prints provided through the Wesleyan University Cinema Archives. Never has film made a stronger statement or touched more lives with its message of freedom and human rights. Capra, the director, captured those times with immediacy and truth, only possible in the years 1942 through 1945. The filmmaker was living these events, and his talent and commitment brought life to the screen. This is not just another compilation of documentary footage, but a vivid, extraordinary account of the world and its people during those incredible years. President Roosevelt was so moved by these films that he insisted they be shown to every American. Today, we can again share that same sense of pride and purpose, to understand and feel the way it was to live through the war years. Open a time capsule and experience all the emotions of a country that did not want to go to war. Feel in your own heart the passion we all felt during those historic years. Share this amazing and powerful cinematic experience with your family. Frank Capra's Why We Fight. Also, here are previews of 4 hard-to-find single titles. They were headhunters until the airplane opened up the jungles of New Guinea. Get a feel for what it's like to fly left seat into airstrips unlike any others on Earth. Meet the pilots whose job it is to bring the outside world to a jungle wilderness. And witness the adventures of those first aviation pioneers who in 1922 dared to challenge sudden death in a world where the great bird was magic and named Ballast. Wings, the Jet Age. It's a tribute to jet-powered flight, a collection of beautiful scenes of awesome force and design. This compilation covers it all, from commercial flight to fighters. Come into the flight deck for the pilot's perspective and also enjoy the magic Astrovision camera work of Clay Lacey, giving you views only his Lear-mounted periscope lens can provide. This is a film every collector of aviation videos will want to own and share. The ultimate achievement in flight, exploration of space. Neil Armstrong's giant leap for mankind was only one of many images that will live in our minds and hearts forever. Space, the frontier and beyond, is a wonderful video album covering the entire history of space flight, with some rare scenes produced by NASA and never shown to the public. Warbirds, one of the world's finest collections, is here in southern Texas. The Ghost Squadron of the Confederate Air Force. Messerschmitts, Spitfires, Mustangs, and Flying Fortresses. They'll put on a show that'll make you believe you stepped through a time warp back to the 40s. Thrill to the power and excitement of the Confederate Air Force in action. Colonel Culpepper's Flying Circus. The Memphis Belle. You've heard about this classic. Now you can include it in your library. Climb aboard the Flying Fortress for an actual mission over Germany. This film, directed by William Wyler, was produced in 1944 during the Memphis Belle's last combat bombing mission. The suspense is real because the story is true. Go along for the adventure, the fear, the horror of air war. There is only one motion picture that tells it this way, the way it really happened. Aboard the Memphis Belle. The Memphis Belle is available for $24.95 plus $3 shipping and handling from Pilot's Video Source. But as a special offer to our viewers, it is available free with the purchase of any combination of videotapes totaling $99 or more. To order by credit card, call toll-free 1-800-223-3556. In California, call 1-800-445-4944. Please place your order between 9 and 5 Pacific Time, Monday through Friday. You may also return the enclosed order form or write us at the address shown. All tapes are best quality standard speed copies made from the finest master tapes available today. Don't settle for inferior videotapes. Order from Pilot's Video Source, the source for quality aviation videos.
Now John's going to show you how to sharpen your crosswind landing techniques.
What we're going to do is get the airplane somewhere between, we'll say, 1.5 to 5 feet off the runway and hold it off and fly the whole length of the runway without touching down. Now, what I'm going to demonstrate by doing this is how you correct for a crosswind on landing. We're going to have a little crosswind from the left, and the way you correct for a crosswind is you bank the airplane, and as you bank the wings of the airplane, the aircraft will start drifting across the runway. In other words, if I bank the airplane to the left, the airplane will drift across the runway to the left. If I bank the airplane to the right, the airplane will drift across the runway to the right. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this banking of the airplane to drift the aircraft left and right. Now, unless you made an active attempt to keep the airplane longitudinal axis pointed right down the runway, in other words, keep the nose going right down the center line of the runway, by using rudder pressure, the airplane is going to yaw left and right. So I'm also actively going to have to use rudder pressure to keep the airplane from yawing to the left and to the right. And this is exactly how you make a crosswind landing, but not touching down and flying the whole length of the runway will demonstrate that very well. Now, people ask on a crosswind landing, how much bank angle do you use? The answer is enough to keep it from drifting left or right. How much rudder do you use? Just enough to keep it pointed right down the runway. Okay, now we're over the runway. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to establish my flare and hold it off the runway. Now, watch it drift to the left when I bank to the left. The airplane drifts all the way to the left. Now let's bank to the right and watch the airplane drift back to the right. Watch it drift all the way across to the right. See it drifting across to the right? That's because I'm banked to the right. Now let's do it again to the left. We're going to drift all the way across the runway to the left. And it's the bank that makes it drift over there. See it drifting across? Isn't that something? Okay, now we'll drift back to the right. Then we'll put it right back on center line by banking. There we are on center line the whole time. Now, watch if I push right rudder, the nose yaws to the right. Left rudder, no yaws to the left. And so you use rudder to keep the nose aligned with the runway, like so. Let's go around. How about that, sports fans?
King Schools takes you to new heights with our Super Takeoff Sweepstakes. How would you like to win this beautiful brand new totally IFR equipped Piper Cadet? It's easy when you enter King Schools Super Takeoff Sweepstakes. Simply order any King video. Select from King's extensive and exciting new library of single-subject action videos designed to take you beyond the written, including 4 of the latest entertaining yet practical takeoff videos. Flying the Citation, Communications, Hangar Flying with a Point, and Takeoffs and Landings Made Easy. Get the fun of flying along with the facts by ordering any single takeoff video for just $39 or any 5 for $79 or get all 11 for only $139. The highly acclaimed and popular King written exam courses are up to date and thorough, containing at least 5 two-hour videotapes. King exam courses include private pilot, commercial pilot, instructor FOI, instrument instructor, ATP 121 dispatcher, and flight engineer exam courses. Right now, each exam course is only $149. That's a complete total price, $149. $149 includes the King exam course of your choice, plus your choice of the private, instrument, or commercial flight test courses, and your choice of any 4 of the King takeoff tapes, all for just an unbelievable $149. And don't forget, your order automatically enters you in the King Schools Super Takeoff Sweepstakes. Your chance to own and fly this brand new 1989 Piper Cadet. Phone your order in now by calling 1-800-854-1001. That's 1-800-854-1001. We're here 24 hours a day to take your order, which is processed and shipped the same day it's received. The number to call is 1-800-854-1001. The price to pay is $149 for any King video exam course. You get your flight test course and 4 takeoff videos free. King's number, 1-800-854-1001. King's price, $149. And your dream, a brand new Piper Cadet. King Schools takes you where you want to go easily and enjoyably. It's the only way to fly. You can bank on it.
Now's the time to mark your calendar for the most important gathering in AOPA history. AOPA's 50th anniversary convention taking place this October 18th through the 21st. Orlando, Florida is a location where AOPA will feature its most extensive convention program scheduled to date, highlighting 50 hours of the best aviation programs available, plus our largest exhibit hall ever and a static aircraft display. This convention at the Buena Vista Palace Hotel promises to be enjoyable for the whole family. The theme for this milestone convention is 50 years in climbing. Here's your chance to find out about the latest in avionics and other upcoming new equipment, and how new equipment regulations will affect your aircraft and your flying in the 1990s and beyond. Here are some highlights of this important convention. Relax and mingle with old and new friends and some characters from Disney World. Hear the new Secretary's views on airspace usage and other pending legislation. A report from AOPA President John Baker will bring you up to date on the significant activities of the association and the challenges that continue to face us today. An update from Air Safety Foundation President Donald Engen will introduce you to new training and safety programs from the foundation. You'll enjoy a unique entertainment and dining experience, celebrating AOPA's birthday with a flair. And the closing banquet will feature dining, dancing, wonderful prizes, and a surprise or two. Everything that's new in the industry, product demonstrations, and an aircraft display await you at the Disney World Stoleport. Here's a sample of the seminars offered at this year's convention. FAR refresher courses, owner-performed maintenance, enforcement procedures, using your sectional chart, financing an aircraft, single pilot IFR, navigating with LORAN-C, terminal area flight operations, and much, much more. For more information or to register for the convention, call this toll-free number, 1-800-USA-AOPA. You can select from 6 hotels with 5 actually located in Walt Disney World. Call now. Don't miss out on AOPA's 50th anniversary celebration.
Once you know how to fly, you will understand every pilot's sense of wonder. If you'd like to find out more about learning to fly and receive a free how-to kit, all you have to do is make a phone call. Take the first step in learning to fly.
If you are viewing a borrowed copy of Wide World of Flying and would enjoy having your own subscription, or you would like to order a subscription as a very special gift for a pilot or aviation enthusiast, credit card holders may call us toll-free at 1-800-999-8783. Or you may send a personal check to our subscription center in Riverton, New Jersey. The price is just $99.95 for 1 full year.